Okay, so look at this beauty. All right, so customer's Jeep. No engine. There was an engine, but it had low compression, and it is getting a full rebuild. And unfortunately, well, let me back up here. My name is Jeremy, Jeeps Unlimited. That's our legacy name, partsbreakers.com. That's more of our up and becoming name, and that had to be changed for a few reasons. But locally, we're still known Jeeps Unlimited since '84. So, okay, we do service work. We don't do a lot of it because we are specifically a parts company, but the parts company allows us, kind of gives us the expertise on what I'm trying to say, on repairing vehicles as well. So a little bit of an advantage for a few reasons. One, because we take them apart all day, and two, because we have a 7-acre yard filled with Jeep parts. Not so much the 70, this is kind of a rare one, so is a 71. But blah, blah. So earlier I did a video and I hadn't had enough coffee, and now I've had too much, so I apologize. So there's a couple things we're gonna do to this guy, and we're gonna learn as we go. And if you folks out there have some expertise in the 70-71, this is one of the 2 years that I know a little bit about, and I've been parting Jeeps out for 18 years, but they're very rare years. They are the Kaiser, the last year of the Kaiser Jeeps, as people know them. They went into the AMC era in 72, and officially, I think there were some cohorts in the 70-71 on the two, but okay, so I'm gonna ask some questions that I don't know, and this video is actually for a tub and a frame I'll be putting up here in a minute, or at least giving you an overshot of something that just came in. So hang tight, you're gonna see a really cool special Jeep here in just a second. This is also a special Jeep, but let me give you a little overview. So we're going to be rebuilding the motor. That's going off to machine shop, hopefully here in a few days. This one's getting a couple little facelift in a sense. It's gonna get power steering. We're gonna get rid of the drum brakes up front, go to disc, which will be a gigantic improvement over stopping. We should increase about 80% stopping power just by doing the disc brake conversion. We're going to be putting, so power steering, rebuild engine. It's getting a little bit more modern transmission, which is the T176. And then we are also putting a little bit more robust Dana 300 in this guy, at least for now. That's the plan, unless something changes. But he's got those parts already, and he's got the adapter, bell housing adapter. So that's kind of where we sit with that stuff. Obviously there's some fab work there. Those don't just bolt right in, but they're pretty close. Okay. I'm not going to go into the specifics at the moment. We'll try to do that as we go with each of the phases of this project. But first pop quiz question, 70-71. For those of you who know this, explain this to me, because this one is throwing me with this other one we just got in. So this one has the fuel tank underneath the seat, which I know was standard in all 60s, definitely up to 69. And I was under the impression that it was standard, I think, in the 70, or at least I thought. This is clearly not aftermarket, the way that this is decorative, but you can also see the neck actually come into the cab here. You can see the tank. The tank's obviously aftermarket there. Okay. So that's one of I had kind of a moment just a little bit ago. So this customer is wanting to go with the tank up underneath the rear. That's not a big deal. I know how to do that. But this is more of just a trivia question on what was going on and why some of them had that and some of them didn't, or if that was, I'm just not sure. So hopefully somebody educate me that way. In addition to do the other stuff we're doing, we're gonna clean up the roll bar, at least so far, and we're gonna put a dash back in this, more of a factory dash, which I just got in. Hopefully it will work with this one. needs to be painted a different color, unless by any chance that Jeep sells as it sits right now, and it may very well do that because it's a titled 70. So, okay, a couple things you have to do when you're doing power steering or considering power brakes, that's on the table as well. These pedals all go through the floor. In 72, they went to a hanging pedal. Jeepster Commandos, that kind of stuff had hanging pedals. These were kind of the weird years where everything is literally like a push, almost like a push rod through the floor, and not easily to adapt things to. The firewall is done differently, and it just creates a couple obstacles as far as setting them up for certain things. On top of that, these years are short in the front, the noses, 60s all the way up to 71, 70. So doesn't give you a ton of room in here. So putting let's say an LS motor, a V8, something like that, while it's possible, there's a few huge obstacles. One is the nose, which obviously you can trim up here. You can even lengthen if you absolutely wanted to. But then the other obstacle comes in with the drive shafts, because you get a real long transmission, especially if you're using an automatic. This one's going to be a manual. But even in a manual that stands up to an LS, it becomes too long. So you get a dinky little drive shaft in the rear. No joke, like literally, like I've seen them 6 inches, and it just doesn't work well. So, okay. So let's go take a peek at this Jeep we just got in, and we'll get back to this one in a second. But beautiful Jeep. This is a California Jeep, no rust. This one is not available for sale. This is a customer's rig. A couple things on this before we walk out there. This is very common. These frames inherently are weak, especially when they get lifted, big tires, lots of power in the engine. V6s are kind of rowdy as is. So that is very common to see reinforcements, especially if they've cracked it all. So this one has gotten this. Who knows if it was cracked? It may not have been. They may have just preventively went in and boxed this in, and that's where the power steering stuff's gonna have to go. So we'll have to clean this up a little bit. They've plated it back there. That's another area they like to crack. And I had a guy in here a few days ago on this that knew Jeepsters really well. Not so much CJ5s, but he was looking at this thing going, there's no way this is all original. He did not think that this was like an original 70 Jeep, that he thought it was a mixture of parts. And he could be right. That's something that I'm still trying to figure out myself, because there's some weird things on it for sure. So, but there's that plate there they did, and you can see these are half box frames. So the front of them, that means the front here is all boxed, and the back half is C-channel. And that creates kind of the weak spot. That weak spot usually is right where those two meet, which is a little bit further up normally. So, but they, like I said, they've reinforced this one, and they did okay on it. I mean, that stuff would be, you'd almost have to do a full frame off to get in there and redo what they did, clean it up. I don't think it's a problem necessarily, and unless you have a budget of, I mean, you could probably have doing a frame off on one of these. My dad just did one, and even knowing me, which I'll go to that later, didn't, you know, he saved quite a bit more, but he still had 45,000 plus into a full frame off. So this one, with the shape it's in, some cleanup, some upgrades, some facelift stuff, and this will go a long ways and really doesn't need, you know, too much. But little things like, you know, somebody just cheaped out on like the brackets for the battery. I mean, you got bent angle iron in there. You got obviously that dash, which is hideous. You got, you know, let's see what else is on this thing that's kind of weird. The roll bar is really weird on it. The dash, of course. The floor's kind of been hodgepodge together. There's holes all over that. So, and then the fuel tank is okay. It's not mounted. It's actually not even, this I believe is the wrong size, or it's too big. It's not in there securely, so that's gonna need to be addressed, but we're gonna address that. Hopefully we put it up underneath it. And that's about it. Otherwise, it's actually not too bad of a looking, it's a great looking Jeep. It just had some things that needed some attention on. So this has been altered and will be altered again when we clean up the power steering on it. but I think that's about it. It's got a hole back here, and it's not cut super clean, but very well might be doable. And there's very little rust in this. There's a little bit in the back tailgate here on the seam, maybe on the bottom. It's hard to say. I haven't seen the bottom of that, but virtually this is a good example of a California Jeep. So now let's go take a look at this Jewel we just got in. Now, while it's not complete like that one, and boys and girls, this is available. At the point it's at right now, I can sell it as it is. You can buy the whole thing. I do have a title for this, but I bought it to part it, and a few things on it. So let's go over it, but just know this Jeep is going to be posted. I'll make a mark on the video on YouTube. It says 11 minutes in, you can see this, and don't have to hear everything else on the other Jeep if you don't want to. But I wanted to show that Jeep to show you some things on it and ask some questions to people out there who may know these a little bit better. So there's a couple rare things on this Jeep. We'll go over those here in a minute. It's a 1970 Renegade, okay? And that might be in itself what makes like the fuel part different. I don't know. That's one of the things I want to know is the fuel filler neck, because I kind of was under the impression that 70s all had it under the seat. But after looking at this one, I'm thinking maybe not, especially because I know for sure that at least what's left here is indeed original. And this is actually the original color. I have a friend who actually has one of these. It's about the same patina and everything. So we're gonna go with a high grade, even though it does have a couple things on the lower rocker. It has a little bit of rust, but I mean little by like 5% maybe, and that's gonna be minor. Nothing that I see completely blown out. Now, I haven't popped the tub yet, but, well, let me rephrase it. The tub has been popped. It's off the frame, but it's sitting on some wood right now. I haven't actually removed it and looked underneath it, and it still has some stuff in it. So, So let's go to the simple thing and look at this frame, okay? This is an original frame. And not only is it original, but it hasn't been cracked yet. Now, it hasn't been reinforced either. It hasn't been cracked yet. Now, for those out there, you know, this looks like somebody maybe this, see, I just don't know, because there's no indication that this could be factory. It doesn't look clean enough, obviously, for a weld to be factory like that, but it's throwing me because it doesn't look like it was cut anywhere else, you know, like cut and moved or anything like that. That all looks, maybe somebody went back over it, and it's hard to say. So if you know a little bit about the motor mounts on them, and if they were just not very clean back in the day, maybe you can help me with that. I'm not telling you it's bad or anything. It's functional. It looks, I mean, it doesn't look great, but it may be just the way they came. I don't know. So I know there were some weird things and some issues with these frames, and it mainly was cracking on them. So, okay, the motor is shot. Okay, they left water. Whoever had this thing didn't think to cover the engine, which was in Colorado, dumb. We got the first freeze and it literally cracked. You can see down the journal that, oh, look at that, crack all the way up in here. So that block is shelled. There's not even good parts you can pull out of it. Everything is probably seized in that thing, which is a bummer. We're gonna get to the winch, don't worry. Okay, so again, this side of the frame, and this is again kind of a two-part for people out there and also our customer in the garage as well, because I want to show them what it originally looked. Now, same thing here, not the cleanest welds, but they're not bubbly like the other one. And I'm still gonna go with, till somebody tells me otherwise, that these are original. This was definitely the original motor in it. So I just don't know if it was, you know, somewhat cleaned up or somebody tried to do something on it. But until we pop it, not 100%, but for right now, we're going with this is a non-cracked 70 frame. And did I mention I do have a title for both of these tub and frame, if sold as a pair, or as the rest of it. So VIN plates are still attached. Now the one in there, something to give you a little bit of more knowledge I should have showed you that we learned the other day. That one is a Canadian CJ5. And that might be why the fuel is weird. So maybe you know a little bit about the Canadian versus US Jeeps. But that one does have a Canada Kaiser's on it versus the normal. It still has this, but down here it has a badging. And this one might have been too. This one doesn't have it. You can see where it was at one time. It's also missing one at the top there, not a VIN plate, but some other kind of sticker informative. That one has it on it. So this does have the badging for V6. That one obviously is a Buick as well, or was. But it doesn't have the badging, and I don't know if that one originally came with that. And that also might be the difference on the two. Maybe only the V6 got that. So we're gonna go over to the overall condition probably on a different video. This one's more or less a comparison, but I do want you to make note this is out here right now because 70s, in 18 years that I've been doing this, I've had probably 8 total, and none of them this clean. And then of course the axle, which is the flanged 44. Okay, which again, another thing that threw me, I was under the impression these only came in 71, but maybe the 70s got them too, or maybe I'm wrong about this. But I do know for sure that is a flange 44, and heck, maybe I have a swap. Maybe this wasn't original. Maybe somebody did have a 71. We don't know, but I'll tell you, and all the time I've been doing this, I've only had a handful of those, and those are worth their weight in gold almost. I mean, they're very expensive and they're hard to find. They're good junkyard find if you can find one. Like that. So again, a little rocker damage, but we'll go over that later. Okay, roll bars. This is the roll bar that other one, if it had a roll bar in it, some of them did, some of them didn't. This is the factory roll bar, or what it should have been. It's hard to say if the angle iron, this looks original, but a lot of times these have gone away over the years and people re-weld angle iron to them. So this one does look all original. Seats are done in this thing, brackets are toast. So, but look at this, uncut. This is what the dash should look like in that other one. We have not only a dash, we have a little bend in it here, but this should straighten when it's bolted back in there. But we have an uncut dash. Now, to the customer in the garage, maybe irrelevant, because if he's going to go with a stereo, he may want tunes up there. Honestly, a lot of guys right now, men and women out there, are putting these back in as more of aesthetics to make it look all original, and then they're shoving a stereo in a center console or somewhere they can lock up a little bit better so somebody can't swipe it out of the car or the vehicle. But I will say this, ironically, that stereo right there, which I believe is original Jeep, we'll have to see to the back of it. But if it's original, even if it does not function, is worth more than some of the stereos that, brand new stereos out there that work. An antique stereo like this, especially just an AM FM, people call for these all the time. And if they're original Kaiser Jeep, you could be a couple $100. Sometimes even I've seen these on eBay for what the whole vehicle sometimes goes for. So it's crazy how much those things are, and hard to find too. So doesn't mean we're going to be there on it. I'd probably like to sell this as a whole, with this dash being that it is uncut, glove box, grab handle, everything like that. So, and I'll get it emptied out. But the floors are solid. This looks nice. We'll have to see if it's got any rust. They rust out usually in these boxes. And I'll unbury this before we do the overall condition on this. But a couple things I want to leave you with here, and you probably were wondering about. This has got this big old Ramsey winch. This was an original winch, original box that it's got on it. That's that's extremely rare to find this. And who knows if it works, but it's there, it's intact. And it's got a couple things on this guy. It's got a Model 18 transfer case in it, which is standard on these. It's got a worn overdrive, very rare. Again, it's hard to say if it works or not. Usually they're needing to at least be rebuilt. But that's there, as well as obviously the PTO that comes off the overdrive, which is your drive shaft to this winch. So this winch is not powered by electric. It's not electric powered winch. This is a mechanical, in a sense, winch, hydraulic, I guess if you wanted to call it that, but it is a drive shaft driven winch. They're very, very hard to find. So if you're wondering how that engaged, it kind of engaged like a modern vehicle. There's extra shifters, and I don't know if we can see them here. And basically, this gets put into neutral, and then the lever for the PTO gets engaged. And that way you can, in a sense, up your RPMs if you need to, and run the PTO. The power is then diverted to the PTO and not the drivetrain. Super ecstatic we got this thing. The seat brackets, I mean, there's so many rare parts on this thing that we just don't get in very often. And to have a nice clean tub that hopefully will check out to be at least an A, if not a high A, and a frame that looks unmolested and possibly uncut, unmodified, with a title to boot. I mean, that's something, and honestly, in all 18 years, I've actually never actually had. They've almost always come in with something that's been manipulated on the VIN. Even the one inside looks like that's a possibility. It's hard to say just because it looks like the rivets have been changed before, but that could have been when they painted it. And that all might be just the way it came, and they just pulled that stuff when they painted it. So, and that one looks pretty original to me as well, but there are some things. So, this is raw steering, if you don't know, if you've ever heard of what raw steering is. Okay, so raw steering is not great steering. Anybody will tell you that. But if you're doing a frame off restoration or matching numbers or anything like that, you're gonna want that setup. So that's very unique and rare to the guy who needs it, and completely useless to the guy that wants usable steering, because that steering sucks. Like, one of the worst. I mean, the whole setup, the way it works. And yeah, I know people out there say, you know what, it works fine. Yeah, add a trail, this works no problem. Slow, no problem. Highways, death trap. It is not a good responsive steering, and it's just too many things in it, too many linkages parts that if something goes bad, you're gonna have an issue, especially if you're cruising 50 down the highway, which I would be surprised if you could get one of these to go that in the stock form. So, okay, and then of course it's drum brakes on the front, which is one of the biggest caveats on these. I don't like the 27s. I had a guy tell me last week that he loved them. They're greatest axle in the world. I think these things are POSs, but again, that's just because I have limited knowledge of them, and I'm sure they're fine. I know they made them for a while. I'm sure with dirt and debris, they work pretty good, but they're a pain in the ass to work on, and they're almost impossible to find parts on. That's one of the swaps we're doing. We're gonna do a 30 in the front of that other one to get rid of not only the drum brakes on the front, which will be a gigantic upgrade, but also get rid of this closed knuckle crap and go to the open knuckle, which is the U-joint, and much more serviceable, and that 30 is universal. That 30 is still in production today, just obviously different form with the JKs, slightly different, more than slightly, but you know what I mean. So, okay, and then, no, I totally got off track. See? Too much coffee. Okay, look at this thing. Now, this is an original 70 tub. I verified so many things when I hunted this thing down and found it. Okay, doesn't have the neck at all. There's no indication this ever had a fuel tank underneath it. But it's a 70. So maybe it's the Renegade. Tell me. Message me, call me, email me. Somebody give me some knowledge. Somebody educate me. I love education, and it's sometimes hard in this when you've been doing this so long to actually figure out some of the mysteries that Jeep was doing. And maybe they just did. It was an either or. I don't know, but definitely not a fuel tank here, and definitely a fuel tank in the back. So if somebody doesn't end up buying this thing as a project, and heck, it still may sell. Parts still may sell off before somebody does pick it up as that, and if we may just sell the tub, that's usually what we do. So, but fuel filler is here. This is factory, nice clean cut. Fuel filler, or the tank, is in the back, which is where that one's going to end up. Which, for a lot of reasons, is better. But again, if you're going off of a build, classic build, you're going to want what it had in it, and I want to know why it had this versus that, and that being the same year as this. So was it the Canada thing? Is it the Renegade? Is it the engine? Did that other one come with the V6? Was it added after? You know, give me some insight. I'd love to hear it. And I appreciate you taking the time. It's 4 days till Christmas 2023, and it is cold out here. We've had some really nice days. 50 degrees plus. I just came back with Vegas. I picked up the Jeeps down there. Got a nice TJ with a hardtop finally. That'll go quick. So, but anyway, here's the yard if you don't know who we are. Okay, questions, comments, interest in this thing, let me know. 303-666-9020. We do hot shot, and I will be sending another hot shot crew out to the East Coast here in sometime before January 15th. So try to get on that load. It'll save you a little bit of coin on the freight stuff. And if you're gonna be shipping the whole thing, if you decide you want this whole thing the way it is, and you know, just to give you an idea, I do have more parts on this. This has probably got enough parts to almost put this thing back together, minus the engine. The engine would be a difficult one in the sense of a running one. I'd have to do another build and get another good core, and that's what's hard to find right now. I do have a line on one if we need another core to build, but not for sure yet. So we got the hood, windshield frame. Now notice the windshield wipers are down here. Okay, they're not hanging. We got fenders, which are got a little rust in the top, but overall they look nice and straight, clean. Other than that spot on the top, those are YJ seats. Those won't work for this, not very easily. We got the grill here, same grill that you've seen inside there. That's some miscellaneous parts, doors and whatnot. And I think this is kind of the nuts and bolts of everything, maybe. Yep. So tunnels, carburetor, brackets, intake manifold, air filter. There's some original stuff on that other one may not have, so we'll look at that. Look at those bad boys. Okay, so this is a good example. For the one in the garage, those are not usable because, and he doesn't even have them on anyway, but because you can't put power steering on it with those, at least from what I've looked at and seen out there. But those are extremely hard to find. Matter of fact, in the Jeepster world or CJ5 world, headers, manifolds, exhaust manifolds are probably one of the most difficult things to find if you need them. So I have a set of those. I might even have another set that came in not so long ago. I think it's floating around here. So harness, this may be used on the one in the garage. We'll see, it depends on how clean it is and what we end up doing there. So we lucked out with some of this. I have not gone through this and done inventory on it. I probably won't until we at least finish the one in the garage. And distributions for the heater box, stuff like that. So got a lot of good parts on this guy. 303-666-9020, partsbreakers.com. And just to give you a little bit, last little bit, this is a wide track, so not exactly, this is a little wider than the one we're putting in there. And clearly it's a 44 that's going back into that one. It's just a centered 44, flange center 44, super strong. This is an AMC 20 out of a late one, so disregard the rear axle in the setting. But essentially this front axle, minus it being a little extra wide, we're gonna go with a narrow track setup in the front, and just a width, the same axle essentially. But disc brakes, he's gonna disc brakes, a little bit better hubs on the lockout. And then again, there's your open knuckle there. Okay, standard U-joint style. That's gonna go onto that Jeep in the garage and whatnot. So we have plenty of Model 27s out here. They're kind of boat anchors. So if you happen to want or need one of those, I actually just shipped one the other day. So there are people out there still doing them. But for the most part, people are wanting disc brakes. And I know the guy told me the other day, he's like, well, you know, you can do disc brakes for a lot cheaper than replacing that axle. And yeah, you can get the aftermarket ones. They're a little hokey, in my opinion. They're not factory looking at all. But also, yeah, you can do that, but you still got a closed knuckle on them. And that's still a huge, disadvantage if you're going to be wheeling in it or using it down the highway. Slow speed, that closed knuckle is perfect. You're right. It's 100%. I know I'm going to have guys tell me that there's nothing wrong with that axle. There's nothing wrong with that axle if you plan on using it on a trail, slow, not hard wheeling, or if you're just putting around town, not hitting anything over 35, 40. But realistically, that axle is not going to be a good axle to have on any kind of, like even out here on 50. This would be this would be a little questionable. Eventually, if you were doing it enough, you'd be blowing that thing up. So, and then finding parts for it is just absolutely impossible. So thanks for 30 minutes of your life. I'll show you the deep passion here. This one, look at this guy, YJ, but this would be a pretty cool build, okay? We've pulled some stuff on it, but I looked at it yesterday and was like, man, you know what? Throw some bigger axles in that, put a basic dash back in it, don't put any of the fancy stuff in this thing, keep the roll bar in it. It's fully Rhino line, flat fenders, and turn this into a, you know, still a usable Jeep, but also semi rock crawling. This would be a badass platform to start with. So it's drivetrains out of it, so you could really go from there. I just got a 6.0 in, guys, for somebody wanting to do, you know, not in the older Jeeps, they're a little harder to fit, like I told you, but now the door needs to move. I need to show you this door here. Oh, okay. And they're not, never like, these things are always a tank. So this is our office, and they just cleaned it up finally. There's a lot of mud out here. So. But look at this. Okay. So this is a really good one to use for a few reasons. Now, this is our office. That's why I wanted to show you this, show our passion. Here's another 10 minutes of your life. You want to hang out for a sec. This is a 1971, I believe. Actually, this might be a 72, 75. I bought this Jeep whole, but it was hit. We never ever cut tubs. I got this. Matter of fact, I didn't even buy this Jeep. This actually came. There was an old man in Denver. I don't know if he's still around. Super nice guy. Was one of our really good customers. This is that crap on the floor here. Mud. All right, pups, come in. You can drive me nuts in here. They just want to go in and out, in and out, in and out. So, anyway, he called us up a couple years ago, and matter of fact, a long time ago. Had this Jeep for a while. We did this in 2020, January. It was cold and COVID was starting to appear. And anyway, he said, I got a Jeep up here, you know, I want you to come get it. So we got up there and I was super excited. I do believe this is a 72, 75. Which is why is this is throwing me for that. Now, the reason I think this is 72, 75 is because of the lettering here. This will tell you a lot about a Jeep's era. There's a good online forums that will help. It's a raised lettering. It's not an emblem here, and it will tell you each year that they use certain lettering, blown lettering, capital lettering, where it was placed, yada yada yada. So I'll have to check, but I'm pretty sure this is 72, 75 based on that alone. Anyway, drove up and got up there, and I was super pumped to see it because I had seen a couple photos, but I had seen this side of it, and I came around the corner and I'm like, oh no. And it had been totally smashed, like just annihilated on that backside. That whole back passenger from the firewall back was completely demolished. And I remember getting there and being like, oh no, it's a waste of time. And I walked up to him, I was like, you know, real polite, and said, you know, I'm sorry, you know, this is not something we would normally get or buy. Plus it did not have axles underneath it, and these are mocked up. It was gonna be pain, it was snowing, it was just like, I'm just gonna go. And he's like, no, I don't want you to buy it. I want you to, you know, we had a Jeep on our building at the time, and it's still up there actually in our old shop. And he said, I want you to use this. So use it in something, you know, I had this Jeep, so I bought it brand new, and I got hit, and I bought a tub, and I swapped everything over to it. But this is what I had left, and I'd really like to see it be used. It meant a lot to him. And I begrudgingly at the moment said, okay. And so we spent a half a day with no equipment trying to get this thing up on the frame and the tub and the front, and it had an engine sitting in it, and you know, but anyway, no axles, and getting this thing up on this trailer. So finally get it up, and I put it in the back of Erie, and I put it out there for the 5 years that we were up there. And then I hauled it all the way to Grand Junction because I made this guy a promise. And so we're sitting in the office January 2020, and actually this is a little bit before COVID shut everything down. But it was cold out nonetheless, and I seen two of my guys standing around doing absolutely nothing, playing on their phones. And I said, you know what, guys, let's do something. And our old building had a Jeep on on the top of our roof, and let's make this place unique. So that's what we did. We cut it, and I had to make some brackets, and it was pretty good. I will say that as good of a fabricator as Richard was, completely fell short when it came to building this desk. He did a good job cutting it, good job kind of propping it up, but I went to lean against it, and it literally almost fell over. And I looked at him like, dude, you can't have this thing crush, myself, my son, we were about to have a baby that year, our customer, so it's got some stilts on it to kind of help it. And now it's pretty sturdy, right? Is it that strong? Yeah, ain't going anywhere.
It's in there.
So, and our desk is set up, we got our computers, and the hood on the other side is cabinets built down the back. And we got our cash drawer in there, which is always empty, so yeah. Anyway, 303-666-9020. Merry Christmas. This is probably to be one of the last videos I do of the year. There might be a couple more we put up, but that's gonna be probably it. So, and then check back with us at some point, because we have a pretty cool wall mural we're putting up right now. We started collecting patches, and if you have a patch, it started with some police officers, some highway patrolmen. I'm thinking I'm getting another one here fairly soon, possibly from NYPD, from a retired officer up there. Active, retired, military, police, fire, first responder. If you have something that's public service of some kind of patch or badging, that obviously you can send us, not something you can't. We'd love to have it, and we do honor you guys. I know it's just a little bit, but we do offer 10%, and that's not something we take lightly, because we are a mom and pop shop. So on a big item like a frame or a tub, that's a significant amount, axles, stuff like that. But also just want to say, not only Merry Christmas right now, but and Happy New Year, but we do really appreciate, my family comes from a line of servicemen, and currently I have cousins that are police and sheriff, and grandfather World War II, and almost all my cousins, 48 cousins on my mom's side, and good portion of those served in the military. So we thank you. We know we're here from you guys, protecting that right for whatever that's worth at this point in time. We know that's still very dear to our heart, dear to my heart, and we love you all. So thank you.